Alright, I said I was going to make a video about how it's a how to rhyme from scratch. Really, you're supposed to make a step-by-step guide before you do all this stuff. You're supposed to write it out on a piece of paper and yada yada yada, because you're going to do a step-by-step guide for somebody else, so you got to do your points and step 1 do this, step 1 do that, step 3. I don't really do that, so hopefully with the way that I put it together it can make sense. So basically what you have to know is basically you have to have a story. Either you have a story, the basis is to have a story. Either have a story or have an idea or have a thought. You don't really have to make it an elaborate thought. You don't have to make it anything big. It's just a seed that you need, and you know you can grow on it, like something you're very familiar with. You talk about yourself because you know yourself, or you talk about politics if you're into politics. You talk about music if you're into music. The punchlines and the things that you come up with within the poetry are just a byproduct of the story that you're telling. It's not even so much that they are necessary within the story, but they become part of the story. So it's for example, I say I want to talk about something like music, and I say I'm like Jay-Z, pay me. This isn't a freestyle, hate me. Lately I've been thinking that, you know, it's just something simple like that. It's a matter of you blend the things together, and it's not so much that you were intentionally trying to do that. It's the matter of that's how the story is being told. Your metaphors, your similes, your anecdotes, all those things come together within the poem. So again, basis is to either have a story, a thought, idea. That's the seed of it. Once you have that thought, that idea, that seed, you can grow from there and you can build from there. Essentially, some people are able to memorize what they're doing. I'm not. So my thing is I use that's the next step now. You can either memorize as you go along, and essentially you're remembering your verses, and you can recite it word for word over and over and over again. What I do, I use word association. So if I say dog, cat, rat, cheese, you see, it's a word association. They're all related to each other. The idea is I tell a story about a dog that relates to a story about a cat, that relates to a story about a rat, that relates to a story about a cheese, and all together that tells a story about the dog, the cat, the rat, and the cheese. So it's like they're associated, and I don't have to think about what's coming next, because they're going to trigger into each other, and they're going to become their own little story. They're going to become their own environment, and that essentially that creates itself. How long can I go on about talking about a dog, a cat, a rat, and the cheese? It all depends on the story itself. My dog's name was Ivan. I was so conniving. Heightened was my senses when I was looking at the pretentious cats. And I know that it was that these rats were running away from myself, trying to get my cheese, myself, my helps. Was my dogs. I told you already, his name was Ivan. So damn conniving. But you see, the idea is simple. It's like I brought up the 4 main things that were just connected to each other, and essentially the story told itself. I didn't have to do anything. I didn't have to think about it in the sense of, oh, what am I going to do next? What am I going to say next? What am I going to do after that? And the idea is now you have to let yourself go to the story. You can't overthink. The reason why you see me have a lot of arm motion, or you see me do a lot of face tapping, or you see me look away from the camera or look to the side is because essentially I'm not thinking about my actions. Those are things that are just going on by themselves, that are just eliminating my surroundings. Essentially, my surroundings become irrelevant to the point where all that's going on is what's inside my head. If I could, and it wasn't a live video, I'd close my eyes and essentially just block out everything and go on. So you have to have little cues that you use for yourself. Like when I start out, sometimes I say I'm thinking, and then that triggers something. So you have little triggers. That's little anecdotes there. So basically, to recap, you have to have a thought, an idea, and you have to have a style that you use, whether it be word association or memorization, whether it be either one of those. That's your core. That's your core. Whatever you use to convey your rhymes, you make sure that you have an idea and then have some kind of template that you convey your rhymes in, so that you don't have to think about that while you're going at it. Did I consciously bring this up, or did I consciously come to this conclusion? No, it took practice. So it's a matter of I practiced it and realized what I was doing, and then I consciously did what I was doing. So now that you have the idea, what it's going to take is you have to improve your vocabulary. Those are the things. Improve your vocabulary and practice. Improve your vocabulary and practice. The idea is not to rhyme all the time. It's not to make a rhyme about, etc., this and that. It's a matter of just how well can you convey yourself into your presence into the story that you're telling. Because I could sit here and tell you a horror story and I would never have to use a rhyme, but the fact that I rhyme makes it a little bit more entertaining, and the fact that my vocabulary is high enough to incorporate a lot of words makes it even that much more entertaining. And try to be aware of your surroundings, the things that people are aware of, so that you can speak to the audience. So you're not just speaking to yourself, because we can all speak to ourselves about anything, but usually when you do a rhyme, you want other people to hear. So like I said, it's not anybody can write something down on paper, but in a sense, to get it off the top of your head, it's essentially writing down on paper without that constricting, oh, I must do it like this, and I must do it like this, and I must do it like that. And another way to get it, like you write how you would think, or write how you would talk. If you keep continually doing that, eventually it'll become so natural to you that when you speak, it'll speak like you were writing it down on the piece of paper. And the more you do it, the easier it becomes. Because I could write in 100 different styles, but there's only one way I can really do a rhyme out loud, because it's the only way I've practiced, and it's the only way that I've gotten it to a point where it's like a science. I could just do it and not even have to think about it. So like I said, my style is usually word association, and I usually start with a thought or an idea, and you let the seed grow into something else. Every once in a while I'm able to tell a story, and that's not really word association. I just essentially I am in the story, so I'm able to tell the story with myself being the midpoint, or the. So hopefully this made sense. Hopefully it was informative, but I think I might have left something out. If I watch this back and I have some little ideas or tidbits that I didn't leave out, then I'll probably add them in. But essentially, it's not as difficult as it seems. It just make sure that you have an idea of what you're rhyming about. Make sure that you have a style that you're rhyming with, and then you practice. And essentially, the more you practice, the more you'll get it. So I'm gonna start off something right now. It's a little simple thing. All right, now in front of me is a mug, a glass, and a cup. I don't know if the camera is picking that up because the camera is facing me. I'm not seeing the screen right now. But a cup, a glass, and a mug. So maybe I'll end up just rhyming about the cup, the glass, and the mug. So let's see where that goes. And that's essentially my demonstration of everything that I just told you, except for the practice and the vocabulary, etc., etc., etc. Just there other details into it. When it comes to poetry, you have to have a sense or ability to write, to be able to do this also, and that's something you can actually practice. If you can speak, you can write. I believe that wholeheartedly. If you can speak, you can write, and if you can write, you can speak. So essentially, if you practice those things, and I brought up things like similes and metaphors, etc., etc., those are just terminologies. If you understand those intuitively and you're able to speak in those terms, then you don't even have to know the definitions. You just have to be able to use them. So cup, mug, and cup, mug, and glass. So I'm thinking that my tea is getting cold. I'm thinking that maybe my soul wasn't drinking the right amount. So I look in the fridge, and what do I see? I see a little bit of me. It was ice. Maybe I should pour it out in this glass, but I could see through. It was half full, half empty. Plenty for me, but people don't know where they want to send me. And I dip my cup into the well, and I'm thinking, oh well, maybe that thing that I'm trying to sell is going to take me to hell. Money, the root of all evil. So I go back to my cup, and I think it's too cold. And thinking about, is the devil going to hate me? He's going to want my soul. That's maybe why I'm getting too old, too bold. These glasses, these people see my milk get spilled. And maybe because my glass was tilted the wrong way. Should I say that I'm on a straight today? Maybe. Things that I do. People don't like me. Well, I don't like you. And that's what it is from me to you. I give the service. The service me. Maybe. Maybe what I say is true. But yeah, and the idea is that I usually use a lot of keywords when I rhyme. I use the word rhyme a lot. I use the word time a lot. Those are the very first two words I ever started out rhyming with. So if you ever hear any rhyme that I use or any rhyme that I write, you'll see the word rhyme and you'll see the word time come up a lot. and you will always see ION as a lot of